Does anybody want to start us off with a question? I'm really interested, the Dickinson film. What kind of brought you to that project?
So I was at my daughter's first grade recital, and they were doing a whole bunch of spoof songs. I think it was almost like a Three Little Pigs type story, but they were using Taylor Swift songs and things like that they had rewritten the lyrics to. It was super cute, but while I was sitting there looking at everything, I was like, well, I'm just curious what the copyright around this sort of thing is. And from there, just kind of the way your brain does sometimes, my immediate next jump was, what's it called? Public domain. And I was like, well, I wonder what is in public domain. I haven't looked at that in a while, and that just kind of made me start to think about, well, could I make a film using all public domain elements? So that led me eventually to poetry, to Emily Dickinson, to the music of John Knowles Payne, who was a contemporary of hers. So all the music you heard was music that she potentially could have heard in her lifetime. And that was really the catalyst for it, yeah.
Cool. Paul, can you talk a little bit about the process that goes into making your films?
In Lithuania?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, film festivals are very important to me, and it's really good to be back at Hobnobben here. Art, I appreciate it. I met the director of a film camp program at a film festival in Paris almost 9 years ago. And, it's just one of those meetings, you never know what might happen. And she told me about the film camp that she's been running in Europe, in Lithuania, for many years. We completed its 26th year this past summer. And 2 years later, she invited me to come and be a tutor at the film camp. And I've been going every year now, except for that 1 year called 2020 when we couldn't go. So for 7 years now, I think I've been going to the film camp and functioning as a facilitator, tutor at the film camp, helping out in various ways. And Claudia, the director of My Grandmother's Story, this was a year ago that we made this film at the film camp during the 2-week film camp. So it was entirely made during the 2-week film camp and made on location right there with actors connected with the film camp. So Claudia pitched her idea, and she came to me before we pitched, and she was really, really nervous. She could hardly talk. She was so nervous. But she told me her story, and it's her personal story. It actually happened to her grandmother. Her grandmother had a boyfriend who was a partisan fighting against the Soviets when they were occupying Lithuania, and her grandmother's boyfriend was shot and killed by the partisans. So it is based on actual events that happened to her. I said to Claudia, Claudia, just tell your story. Just tell. I think we'll all love it. And she was able to get up in front of us and tell her story and got the green light and got the director film. So it was really, really a good experience. And yeah, so that's how the films are made. And Boston is here today. He's been at the film camp twice and made two short films. And it's a tremendous opportunity to learn filmmaking in Europe.
Thanks. Jordan, the line that drove me nuts in your movie was that I always see these projects as ephemeral, and I'm like, I'm seeing it on the screen. How did you navigate that relationship?
Well, I was just documenting whatever he did. I took off the whole 2 weeks to kind of see what he did. I've seen him do these pieces before, and we were friends back in college. So he was in Canada and came back in, but I just really enjoy doing documentaries. So just following him along that process was a lot of fun, and we had no idea what the end project was going to be, and that's kind of the fun of it.
Yeah. Does anybody want to jump in here with a question? I can ask questions all day long.
The characters in that last one, what were they made out of?
A lot of the older pieces are made from driftwood. That's a lot of times I would see Kevin, years ago, searching the riverfront for driftwood. But he's also used paper mache and clay and other things as he gets older, and it becomes hard to work with his hands with wood. Let's see, his first one was in Mexico. He's done 2 in Canada now. He's in Norway right now, doing some smaller pieces, and they're also having a screening of the documentary there. But he's done a large art installation there in Norway. And did I say Canada? He
Yeah.
did 2 in Canada and 1 in Muncie, which was right down the street and from here as well. But he's been doing studio work for 20 years, doing those characters, and the large art installation pieces are fairly new. I think he started doing those probably in 2018.
I have a question. Is it Coombs?
Yeah.
How did you get that shot in the tiny bathroom?
My DP is up there, and he's going, "You better answer this
Your,
right."
your DP did good work on that film, by the way. It's really nicely shot.
What was the focal length on that? I mean, it was wide, so 20, yeah, like 25 on the Aria Mira. It was on a Dana Dolly kind of pushing in, and I mean, it was a little bit of a location luck where the bathroom itself just kind of had this almost like tunnel-like feel to it. It was this long, kind of thin space, and so, we got into the apartment and looked at it, and we're just like, well, I mean, there's really only one way to shoot it, is straight down the barrel. So you follow the leading lines, and you do some lighting to help it maybe kind of not look so sterile. And
So was the camera on a track?
yeah, it was on a really low track,
Yeah.
all the way on the ground, and then just slow push in. And we had the idea of trying to get the entire poem in one go, and we didn't quite have enough track for that. So we actually shot it with the push in at the beginning, and then we just stopped and held, and then we flipped it and started the push in halfway through,
Yeah.
and we were able to intercut some of that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
really nice. It helps to have a nice camera, doesn't it?
Always, yeah. I have a question, actually, I'll throw it right back to you. I was really struck by just the, like how dynamic some of the framing was, and it seemed to be very tight in terms of coverage that was shot in the film. Like there were very intentional choices with certain wide shots and whatnot. I'm curious, is that something that the students would work on in storyboarding and really go in with a master plan? Or was that a little bit of there was a lot shot that you just left on the cutting room floor?
I can't answer anything exactly for sure with that. I was running around doing a behind-the-scenes flick during the film camp that year. Last year, I got recruited to do the behind-the-scenes. It varies a lot. Some of the crews do their homework and do storyboarding and shot lists, and some don't. I think in that case they did it because you can tell.
Yeah.
I think they did shot list, storyboarding, and they had it very well planned out. And their film their shoot went very smoothly. And the big difference between a film shoot that goes smoothly and one that doesn't usually is preparation. But they were very well prepared. And I think the DP he was actually a staff person at the camp, so he had a lot of experience. But the director did a good job too. I mean, it's a very well put together film. Yeah, very impressive what they accomplished in about 12 days from beginning to end. Yeah. Yeah, the first 2 days of the film camp is lectures and kind of orientation, and the participants pitch their idea. And then there's about 2 days of pre-production, 2 days of production, 2 days of post-production. I mean, it ends up being like 3 days for each. So it adds up to be about a total of 13 days altogether. Yeah, and the locations are all just within a few miles of the base camp.
Anybody else want to jump in?
Do you know, Art, the New Zealand documentary, which I thought was really, really impressive? Do you know anything about that film?
I don't offhand. No.
The one with the
bodies?
the naked yeah.
No, I don't offhand know anything about the
Okay.
filmmakers of the film there. I just knew that when Alex and Amanda and Christy saw that film, they were like, "Yeah, that one's in."
I have one thought on that film I'd like to share, and that is that, like, I think that film is a great example of why it's really important to, like, hold your shots and, like, let things play out, because there's some very imperfect shots in that movie that are some of the most powerful things I've ever seen. And so, like, oh, I got to reframe, or oh, I got to refocus, or something like that. It's like, no, you would have missed the tear. You would have missed the moment. And, like, I was super moved by that movie, but, like, also just blown away by, like, the patience of it, to really just sit with these women in these moments. And that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I felt the same. The thought I had is similar to what you said, I think, in terms of feeling. The thought I had is, the filmmakers were not afraid of emotion.
Yeah.
They stayed with it.
Well, that film was born out of the photography exhibit. So the photography exhibit existed first, and it feels very photography-esque. And so it was very clear that the visuals are going to be important to them in that one. And so, and you can definitely feel it.
And that's really interesting that a documentary spawns out of a photo shoot. I do photography full time, and it'd be interesting to see, like, I mean, not so much, big subject matters, like that, but that would be very interesting seeing something snowball out of a project.
I want to say something that I think is really cool. Jordan's film, Sack Races with Knives, is screening in Norway this weekend. And the artist, what's his name?
Kevin Titzer.
Kevin is there doing an exhibition. And, so here we have an Indiana-made documentary screening in Norway, and the artist is there. I mean, I think that people in Norway are just absolutely going to love it. And I think it's a great example of how, making a film about somebody, I mean, it gives Kevin a whole new dimension to show, like, who he is and what he does, and adds to his, program in Norway, I think, immensely. So
that's where a lot of my original question came from, was that notion of, like, here he is saying this project is ephemeral, but this one of all of the ones won't be, right?
Right.
It'll be the one that lasts with him, and now this film documents it. Now this exhibit lives on, but it lives on in a different form of art,
Yeah.
and that's kind of cool.
I mean, a lot of the little characters do get displaced,
Yeah.
For people that were involved. And for the title sequence, we actually had to track down a few of these characters to photograph them in 16 different angles so we can make a CG element to make them come to life. So it did take some, it was like another scavenger hunt to, like, track down these pieces again after it's all done, to do that for the title sequence. But yeah, most of it's just thrown away in the trash, where we found it.
Quick question on the film about the human body being a treasure. I know in Wizard of Oz they couldn't do certain chemicals on the Tin Man because of the metal making him sick. How did they handle the gold spray? What was that material about?
I don't think anybody here can answer that question because none of us were involved in that film, unfortunately.
They did say it was clay, so I'm guessing a combination of, like, a more organic material plus it just not being on them for very long.
Yeah.
Because I know with what you're referencing with Wizard of Oz, it was all day, every day, and so it was seeping into his pores. Yeah. I love this conversation, and just a real quick follow-up, this idea of transmuting art into different forms. And I love that we have a story, a family story that gets transmuted into a short film, and we have this ephemeral piece that gets transmuted into a film that now lives on. That was a little bit of what we were hoping to do with 3 Poems and take Emily Dickinson's work and put it in a different light. It's a really cool like, filmmaking is the ultimate hodgepodge, and, like, it's really cool to see different forms of art and storytelling live on.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts about what the programmers of Hobnobben do is, like, instead of our blocks being like, here are the dramas, here are the documentaries, here are these thematics, they're so much fun to play with. And, like, just have a whole theme around art and the ways in which film functions as art, but also the body functions as art and all those kinds of things. It's one of my favorite parts of the festival.
I had actually a very similar question along the lines of what you just said. At the end of the sack race with knives, he has that line about he's okay with it being destroyed because it's okay that it's ephemeral. How do you feel about
I think's great, since it was only up for a month. Yeah, and like whoever comes to that opening and whoever seems to pass by at that certain time to see it, is only going to see it, and it's documented. But he's done other art installations, and it always it always gravitates filmmakers, or just people that just like, well, we got to document this, because and like the ones in Canada, you saw like a quick shot of like a drone shot of like him in like a valley, and like I think they actually burned those and kind of document the process of that. But I mean, there was an extended cut that we showed at the university that it was shot at that shows the professors tearing down the piece. But for film festival, it just seemed like it just made it too long, so we cut that part out and just kept that for the university screenings.
It's kind of like a funeral, tearing it down, yeah. Well, I was impressed with the quality of the films today. I saw the previous block, I forget what it was called, and then this block. And, I saw some really great films today, Art. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And honestly, thank you. You're the reason we're here. So we really appreciate you guys coming out and having a conversation with us. So thank you, and thank you for your films. We really appreciate it.